I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're stepping back into the rich tapestry of American history with Gary E.J. Kain. He's the author of an amazing book. It is called A Man Called Ants, Once a Cowboy. In this meticulously researched historical novel, the author brings to life the era of the United States Western expansion, blending real events and characters with the fictional tale of Ansel Anderson Earley, also known as ants. From the battlefield to the courtroom of Judge Isaac Parker and the intimate discussions between Lincoln and Grant, the author invites readers to decide for themselves the truth of ants' existence. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Gary, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really, truly appreciate this. It's a great opportunity for me. Thank you.
Well, it's a great opportunity for us as well to talk to you about your amazing work. You obviously have a great passion for American history and the Western era, and it just shines through in the book, A Man Called Ants. Tell us what inspired you to write about this particular period and this character as well.
Well, actually, I started talking about, my daughter started bugging me a couple years ago. And she says, because Dad, you're always telling these stories, but write them down for a chance, will you?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. So I wrote a book, but it was called Selfie. It was just a biography of me and a bunch of little stories.
Mm-hmm.
So then I finished writing those, and I thought, I'm so interested in American history, and I've got all these notes, and I've got this background. Maybe I can go ahead and write this book. So I started putting things together, chapter after chapter, and bits and pieces of my history. And I'm talking about my time with the U.S. Forest Service and working with the Hopi Indians on firefighting teams. Talking about my time with Roy Rogers and Iron Eyes Cody, who I had the opportunity to listen to them because they were true historians themselves. So I learned a lot of that. So that's kind of got me started in the book. And,
well, the authenticity of the setting and the events in the book are remarkable. So I guess part of it was your body of knowledge, part of it was research, and you intertwine that with your characters and the historical figures and events and so forth, right?
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Give the folks at home an overview of what the book is about.
Okay, the book basically is it's kind of breaking into two periods. It's a period from about when the Civil War starts, roughly. Let's call it about 1861-ish, until the end of it in about 65. And then it picks up again in about 1880-ish, and then goes to the end of the Cowboy type period. So the part that to me was interesting was doing the research on the war in the West. There's so much research done and so many books written about the war in the Civil War in the East, about the thousands and thousands that were killed into a specific battle, and on. But the war in the West was entirely different. The war in the West, the war along was actually from the west of the Mississippi River to the south of the Red River. We're talking about a 1,250-mile line. So it was, and there were really no specific battles to speak of there. I mean, I can mention a few, I will. But generally, there were the battles that there were skirmishes, and the skirmishes might end up with the death of 10 or 12 people, or it might end up with 100, but it's not the thousands that you hear about. And very, very little was written that I could find without a heck of a lot of research about that particular war in the West. And I can go into some of those details when you want me to.
Sure. Whatever details you think would be of interest.
Okay, so basically, if you take a look, and I'll put my experience also in there so you know. I consider several different battles. So switch over to the east for a moment. And the second battle of the wilderness, to me, is a very, very key battle. And there is where I introduce my character, Ants. And he's the one who helps drag people out of it. And he could, this is during the heat of not just a battle, but the situation that existed where the soldiers of both Union and Confederate had muzzle loaders, and they had paper cartridges, and they would catch fire, and they would start tearing the soldiers apart, and the fire became all around them. And I experienced, because maybe you think I'm crazy, but working with the Forest Service and getting involved in those firefights, I could close my eyes. I could see the fire around Ants. I could smell the smoke, and I could physically hear the noise of the fire. Because if you're in a fire, true firefighter, as a firefighter, it's not quiet.
Yeah.
And so, and I had that opportunity. So there I consider a key battle. And there I'm introducing Ants, and he has an opportunity to go back to Texas. So
tell us a little bit about the character of Ansel, or Ants. He's quite a fascinating character indeed.
Actually, he's he's composite of characters. Yes, actually, Ants, it was part me in there too. So Ants was born in Texas, Brownsville, and that's really on the real southern part of Texas, right on the Rio Grande River. So he was born there, and then he, when the Civil War started, and he wanted to join the Confederacy. And by the way, it was a tough vote. If you take a look back, were they a Union, were they Confederate? There was only a handful of votes that decided them go to Confederate. They were Texans. So he wanted to go into cavalry unit. So he tried to get enlisted in there, and they had him doing all kinds of things. Then they found out that he could read and write cipher. He's good at numbers, and he's good at reading and writing. Very, very true of the early P's. They were not all that signed their name with an X, like Hollywood proved it. I mean, they studied the Bible, they read the Bible, and they learned how to read and write. So this was true of most of the early cowboys. So anyway, from there he gets transferred to the war in the East, and then they find out that they put him in the infantry, just like I got in the infantry. Exactly. So they put him in the infantry, and there is where he shined in the second battle of the wilderness, because he was able to save people. He was able to actually meet Grant and other officers, because he drug a person from there, and they thought he was going to be a prisoner, and he said, "No, I can't be a prisoner, because I've taken one of your guys in here and gave him to him." So he became. So then they send him with a note, because Lee and Grant knew each other. And they knew each other because they both West Point graduates. And that's key also in through here, because the West Point has a code, an honor code. And neither one of those, neither Lee nor Grant, would break that code. So Grant sent Ants back to Lee with a message to give to Lee, which he did. And then Lee, in turn, found out that there was going to be, through their spies, now, they had a tremendous spy group going on both sides. So Lee then decided that he wanted to have Ants, who was from Texas, and to actually ride to Shreveport area and to give a message. And the message was basically is that they were preparing a big brown water assault on Shreveport. And that it's all true. So I can go on. Do you want me to go on with this? Or?
Well, we're running out of time, so I wanted to change topics a little bit. All your stories are fascinating. We could talk to you all day, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And you touched upon it briefly, your own personal background, working with Roy Rogers and Iron
Yes.
Eyes Cody. Tell us a little bit about Roy Rogers and how you wound up working with him, and what kind of guy was he? He's the guy who never met a man he didn't like. Was that Roy Rogers, or was that a different cowboy?
There was somebody else. No.
Yeah.
But Roy Rogers was he would wear a flamboyant type clothes. He really didn't dress like a cowboy, but he was a cowboy. All right.
Yeah.
So, but the point that I'm getting to on Roy Rogers and Iron Eyes Cody is that now this is before, I'm getting a little long in tooth, so my age is getting up. So basically, this is a period when they used to do a lot of rodeo, shows, and they would be like the MC would come on and he would say, okay, here's Roy Rogers, and Roy Rogers is going to talk about gun safety, and he's going to be, they shoot some birds up there, not real birds, play birds, and pistol, and he had games like that for the audience. And then they also had, trick riding and a few other things, and then they would get on with the rodeo and type stuff. So it was all rodeo grounds. So I had the opportunity going to college too, between Forest Service, which only at that time was the time you only were in the Forest Service for 4 or 5 months or something like that during fire season. It wasn't full time like it is now today. So it was So anyway, so I got the opportunity, and not exactly sure how I met them, but I did through some other friends, and so I had an opportunity to play cowboy. So so I decided, yeah, why not? So what they ended up doing was just crazy. But when you're 17, 8 years old, 18 years old, and you're to 25, you're indispensable. You cannot be hurt. You understand?
Exactly. You're indestructible.
Impossible. You're indestructible.
Yeah.
So anyway, what they got me to do was a skit. So what I ended up doing is I was a bad guy, and what I was trained to do. Now this is in front of a crowd. What they would do is I would hop on a horse, and I would have a bag of money, which it was just a bag, with a big dollar sign on it.
Yeah.
Bag of money, and I would race down the thing with this horse, and I'd get shot off the back of the horse. I would fall backwards. I'd get my foot caught in the stirrup.
Wow.
And I'd be drugged by the horse, and then I'd roll in the dirt, and then I'd get up after dying, and I would resurrect myself. I would get up, pick up my hat, wave to the crowd would cheer. So that was my job to do. And sometimes I would have to do it a second or third time because the people wanted to see it again. Now, the good news is I had a horse that was smarter than I. And he never, in all those times, he'd never, ever stepped on me.
Right. Or dragged you for a very long distance or something, right?
Pardon?
He could have dragged you for a very long distance also.
Yeah, I could have got my foot. What you do is you put your toe of your boot in your left hand, left stirrup, and then twist up a little bit, all right? And then when you fall over and you're drugged, then you just take your right foot and you click it, and it's free. You're free. So it's a simple thing to do.
It's a simple thing to do if you're 17 or 18 years old, completely flexible, a good horseman, and have a lot of luck.
Yeah.
Well, that's another great story. Gary E.J. Kain is a master storyteller, as you can tell from this interview, and he's written a powerful book that you'll just love. You'll find very, very entertaining. It'll bring you back to the Old West. It is called A Man Called Ants, Once a Cowboy. He masterfully transports us back to a pivotal time in American history, blending fact with fiction to tell a compelling story of adventure, identity, and the relentless march of progress. Gary, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed talking to you as well. And I look forward to speaking to you again, and I'll wish you happy trails, as Roy Rogers might.
That's exactly what he would say.
There we
Happy
go.
trails.
Happy trails to you. Okay, I won't
Right.
sing. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until
Thank
next
you
time
so much for your time. Right.
on
Really
Spotlight.
appreciate it. Thank you. Right. Good.